hope you're enjoying my dad's videos. Make sure to share this video with family and friends, like and subscribe, and turn on post notifications so you get notified for all my dad's new videos. My social media will be tagged down below so you can follow it. And just remember, Jesus loves you.
Hi guys, just one little factor here before we start this video here today. If for any reason my YouTube channel gets taken down, which could happen because we're challenging the deep state and we're challenging the powers behind the scenes. But if it does get taken down, I'm going to share the link below here. We have a website, drcharlieward.co.uk, and you can subscribe on there to our updates and our newsletters, etc., that are being produced by Lee Hemington. But you'll be able to keep in touch with what's going on. So at the moment, everything is nice and smooth. But if for any reason we get taken down, you simply go to my website, drcharlieward.co.uk, and register there, and you'll get all the information as to where we are or where you can view our videos.
It wasn't even a movement 5 weeks ago, and now we stand with 11 other cities in the UK.
Human trafficking is a problem everywhere, worldwide problem.
Drain the swamp! Drain the swamp!
Human trafficking is worse than ever before. An estimated 25 million people around the world today are being held captive, manipulated, and abused by human traffickers. In 2018 alone, the National Human Trafficking Hotline identified over 23,000 human trafficking victims in the United States.
Scam! It's the cover-up for the real pandemic. 8 million kids go missing every year. Don't go on any longer.
Children! Save our children!
65% of these victims were women. More than 1 in 5 were children. Human traffickers prey on their most vulnerable citizens and people. They're vicious, they're violent. My administration is fighting these monsters, persecuting and prosecuting them, and locking them away for a very, very long time.
Save our children!
Human trafficking is a form of modern slavery affecting men, women, and children of all ages.
20 years ago, this nation took a historic step to protect the victims of this form of modern-day slavery here in the United States and all around the world. My administration is 100% committed to eradicating human trafficking from the earth.
I know it's so devastating to hear this, and I'm really sorry to share this, but I'm grateful that you guys are listening, because this is actually happening, and it's important that we know this and that it resonates with us, so that we think about this in our days and in our personal lives.
Hi guys, and today I'm joined by Tiana Islam. Thank you for joining me, Tiana.
Thank you, Charlie, so much for having me and inviting me on this show.
It's an absolute pleasure, and it's lovely to share information, not just in one country, but in many countries. And I've been trying to get the message out to Bangladesh, India, Pakistan for a while, because I have a lot of friends out there, and they're countries that I absolutely love.
Right.
The spirituality levels in those countries is unbelievable.
Exactly.
And if we can just tap into that sort of area, just to open their eyes a little bit as to what's really going on. So today we've got Tiana with us.
Yes.
So we're going to discuss a lot of things. You've got a number of questions for me?
So many questions, so much to discuss.
Go.
Okay, so I'll just start by saying how I got into this, which was during the COVID, basically, which is when I really started researching everything, and it led me down, the proverbial rabbit hole that everyone talks about. So then I opened my own Instagram page and started posting, small sound bites of information about everything that was going on in the world. And because I'm 24, I just didn't find anyone amongst, my age and my generation who was really seeking to understand anything beyond the official rhetoric that was on TV, it was on the newspapers, and literally all social media platforms. And I realized that all the comments in social media were just repeating the same exact narrative. And that's when my journey began, and the search for truth just really became addictive for me. And I've been following a few people like Sasha Stone, David Wilcock, Ollie Demigard, and then there was John Rappaport, Robert Steele, and I absolutely love Russell Brand from the spiritual side of things. I love how he speaks about, he ties spiritualism into politics very well. And then we've got Candace Owens and Charlie Kirk. Those two were particularly very influential for me because they're very young and they've formed the biggest student organization in America now, which is called, I believe it's called Turning Point USA. Yeah. And then I've been listening to Charlie Freak and his wife, Colleen, a little bit in the last couple of months. But anyway, there have been many who have influenced my awakening. But lastly, there was also Sean Morgan, who is just by far, in my opinion, the best Q drop interpreter there is right now, I think. And I just realized, you know, when I started my page, I realized that the younger generation, especially my sisters, who's 17 and her friends, they just do not have an attention span anymore. And TikTok and apps like that have a lot to do with that because it's not more than a few seconds, their attention span, which is why I decided that, you know, the information I put out really just needs to be quick. It needs to grab their attention, and it just needs to be not too much political semantics, you know, difficult political semantics. Yeah. So that's how I really started, basically. And it just, you know, it really worries me that AOC has become basically the symbol of empowered womanhood for my generation. And, you know, I just feel like people have become so intellectually lazy and the apathy is so real. They don't really want to do any studying beyond their academic schoolwork. And I'm just, you know, I'm just really worried that they're the ones who are being targeted because, you know, we're the easiest people to get a very emotional reaction out of, you know. And so until as young people and as a generation, we don't understand false flags and psyops, it's very hard to progress as society. So that was the plan, basically, to really target the young people. Like, I really would love to inspire a young generation of deep, independent thinkers, you know, instead of just being a generation who are so emotionally weak and who really care about feelings over facts. So yeah, that was the reason I started, basically.
There's an old saying, not just a pretty face. And on this journey, what's amazed me, I've met some incredibly beautiful women, yourself included. Elpa Soni from India, Laura Avali from Italy. I mean, absolutely stunning women that people could misjudge as saying Kelly Rivers from San Francisco. Beautiful women that people could misjudge as just being a pretty face. And not one of you are just a pretty face. There's a very deep understanding of what's actually going on. And the funny thing is the people that you would think were super intelligent, nothing between the ears. I mean, lots and lots of theoretical stuff, but common sense, zero.
Very true. I've seen that most with friends, actually, who are the highest intellectuals and have been to the best universities in England. They're the ones who are the most, you know, refuting and against all of this. And they're doctors and scientists who, it's absolutely insane that those are the people who are the most asleep, honestly. It's just so sad that the MSM really have subliminally dictated what we should believe. Yeah. And I just feel like the only message for the past 4 years for us has been that Trump is a monster. Any opposing view is immediately labeled a conspiracy theory. Right. And these so-called fact checkers who very frequently take my post down on Instagram as well, have somehow become, you know, the self-claimed private authority for everything in the world. And what they really are basically fascist propaganda machines.
That's exactly right.
To me, they're very reminiscent of the war propaganda of Stalin, Hitler, and Mussolini. So it's just odd that no one else sees it for what it is. And I just really feel like if we can just tap into, if I could just tap into the young generation, because I really believe in the 100th monkey syndrome. I'm not sure if you've
Yep.
Heard about that? This, which was an experiment basically done in 1952, I think on a Japanese island, where basically scientists gave monkeys sweet potatoes dropped in the sand, and I think the monkeys, they liked the potatoes, but they didn't like the dirt on it. So apparently one of the females went to a nearby stream to wash it off, and then she taught that to her mother and the other monkeys. But basically after 100 monkeys followed this habit, the surprising thing was that the scientists observed that the colonies of monkeys on other islands, such as I think it was mainland Takasaki-Yama Island, also the colonies of monkeys on those islands also washed their sweet potatoes without ever having any contact with the original group. And so this 100th monkey effect is what happens when basically a critical mass of people develop a new awareness of something that is literally communicated from mind to mind, right? Like a vibrational energy of sorts.
No, Tiana, you're spot on right. And I spoke to you before we went live here about the spiritual levels of India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh. And it's something that is very, very touching when I go to those countries. Because, in fact, virtually every spiritualist I talk to is from one of those three countries, because they are so closely connected to those levels that I never knew anything really about. And then suddenly when you talk about this, the 100 monkey syndrome, that it can happen in one place and the other monkeys don't know anything about it, and yet there's something going on that creates that movement.
Exactly, it's fascinating.
It's unbelievable, isn't it?
It really is, honestly.
And we're dealing with a lot of monkeys out there right now.
Definitely, a lot of monkeys out there.
They were sheep, but they're monkeys now.
Definitely. Especially the way that this, I like calling it the voodoo virus, which has been so politicized. I mean, in my opinion, I just think when it first came out in March, the most rational thing that should have been done, I think, is that the highest caliber virologists, immunologists, and comparative disease specialists should have just, come together, put their heads together to create a solution from which then the government could implement a strategy based on, widespread knowledge of the whole medical system, rather than just what we have now, which is basically an overwhelming onslaught of this almost brainwashing one-sided narrative. And I think it was Emma Goodwin on your show who mentioned this is all based on the germ theory of disease. And I think she said Louis Pasteur discredited the whole germ theory just before he died. Yeah. So it doesn't make sense that now that the whole medical protocol is based on this denounced theory.
Well, it makes sense to me because I was told this was going to happen last year, and I was told it was done to cover up the global financial reset. So I see the sense in it. I see why it was done, because it's completely created confusion and fear. But there's actually nothing solid in it. But what I'm trying to do is wake people up to question things rather than just accept things. It's all done to cover the quantum financial system that's in transition right now, the change of the financial system, the global financial reset. That's what it's to do. But I'm just completely in shock at people walking around with masks on. And still my funniest moment is the woman in America that walked into a shop, didn't have a mask, and they stopped her and they wouldn't let her in unless she put a mask on. She pulled up her skirt, pulled down her knickers, put them on her ears, and they let her in. And when I saw that, I went, yeah, that sums it up. And I've been told...
Nothing to do with safety, our safety.
I was told that I had a ventilator, what they call it, an inhaler in my pocket, which I always carry with me. Never used it, but carry it with me. And I got a letter from a doctor. But went in, before I had the letter from the doctor, I went into a shop here, and he stopped me. And he said, no, it doesn't matter that you can't breathe. He said, you just need to make a hole for your nose and a hole for your mouth, but you need to wear a mask.
Oh, my goodness.
Exactly. And when you get to that level of stupidity, you just realize, we're up against it here. And trying to get the truth out is incredibly difficult when people are that stupid.
It really is. It really is. Sometimes I don't bother, because it's just some people, it's so... Stupid people sometimes just are so good at winning arguments, because like the quote says, they literally drag you down to their level and then beat you with experience. And it just makes it all the more difficult to have an actual informative debate with them. And also I've realized that my friends who are liberals, it's hard to have conversations without them getting aggressive.
Yes.
I think it's so important to just, use facts and proper political reasoning and base everything on proper hardcore evidence, which I don't see the left do a lot of. And
you also notice that the left wing are very frustrated at the moment, very angry in general. And you tend to find the right wing, the people are like, I don't know if I'm left or right. One thing I am is I'm trying to find out the truth. I
think we're constitutionalists, not left or right wing.
No, I just support anybody that's doing the right thing. I don't care whether you're labelled Labour, Liberal, Democrats or Conservative. Doesn't matter to me. The trouble is they're all full of shit. That's the problem right now. And we need some leaders to lead us who are going to, if they say they're going to do something, will actually do it, instead of saying they'll do something until they get our votes, and then when they get into power, doing exactly the opposite.
Exactly. So going back to the whole medical protocol that we were talking about, I read somewhere that was basically a deliberate attempt to vilify Antoine Beauchamp, who basically discovered the terrain theory of disease. So what I don't understand is, why didn't CDC or the WHO get, the insight of doctors with almost 40 years of clinical experience and published data, like Dr. Andrew Kaufman or Dr. Shiva, Dr. Judy Mikowitz. There's so many, Dr. Rashid Buttar, who are all proponents of the terrain theory of disease. They've all stressed on how important it is to balance your body's internal chemistry in order to strengthen the immune system, which basically means that it's more important to work on the terrain of our body so that you make it, inhospitable for viruses and parasites to reside in. So I just don't understand why they didn't take the insight of these people, reputable doctors. Like when Emma talked about the exosomes, being in our blood, I looked at it and they do literally resemble the coronavirus. So all these doctors said the same thing. They said that, these exosomes are being mistakenly called the virus. So, but what we have now is basically just every field, and every field of endeavor, basically, whether that be education, healthcare, entertainment, there's only one view that's allowed, and the MSM are basically the purveyors and the gatekeepers of this narrative. And it just really worries me, because in my generation and future generations, we will never be able to engage in and pursue new ways of thinking if we're not taught that it's acceptable, right?
No, exactly. You're absolutely spot on right. My problem has always been that I was told this was going to happen, and they were going to do this to collapse the economy. But what I find difficult to understand was how easy it was over a common cold. Exactly. When you've got a very, very corrupt mainstream media and a corrupt government, it shows what you could do.
Right. I mean, look at the hatred for Trump. I mean, only one view of Trump is accepted in society. And since he came into office, the minds of the public have been slowly, manipulated to hate him so much that it's now a programmed reaction for even 8-year-olds on TikTok I've seen. Yeah. So, Charlie, Trump derangement syndrome is a very real thing. Like, there's a lot of people who need to be diagnosed with it.
Exactly, I agree.
It was just so immediately demonized for having any other view. And it's absolutely horrific, because people can't even tell their family. And it's become identity politics now, isn't it? It's just all about enforcing and throwing it in our faces that somehow ethnicity, race, or gender are a part of are somehow some sort of special interest. And what it is it's destroying the whole philosophical base of the civil rights movement. And the civil rights movement was trying to create a society where we see people as individuals rather than as members of a class or a race or religion. And it was about destroying politics in that sense. I mean, isn't that what Martin Luther King was about? But we've gone back in time to reverse everything he's achieved. His I Have a Dream speech.
Yeah.
Didn't he say that he wanted a world where we are not to be judged by the color of our skin, but the content of our character? And now, who cares about content of our character when the color of our skin is just absolves us of our civic accountability? So
I think this window of opportunity that we're having today should be a lesson to every single person that watches this. I'm talking to a 24-year-old girl originally from Bangladesh, who is so eloquent and so well informed, this is a lesson for everybody who misjudges any character. That, you know, it's so easy. It's so easy for anybody to look down on somebody. I always have a joke about when I work in India and Pakistan and Bangladesh. I've got people who've worked for me for years and years and years, and they refuse to call me Charlie. It's always, yes, boss, yes, boss. I go, just call me Charlie, yes, boss. They're so respectful, so polite. And even after 10, 15 years, they still call me boss. And they won't call me Charlie for love nor money because of their respect levels. And we could learn so much in England about respect, because there's a lack of respect for elders in England. You know, the minute you get old, you're put in an old people's home because you're a pain to society.
It's not a part of our culture.
That doesn't happen in Bangladesh or India or Pakistan, does it? Wouldn't ever be thought of.
Honestly, exactly. We can't think of something like that. It just doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen. And it just shows how the moral compass of the United Kingdom on issues like that has been programmed so badly by mainstream media. It's not just England, it's Australia, it's New Zealand, it's South Africa, it's Canada, it's middle-class white countries. Let's get it right. These are the people that are disrespecting their elders.
And the media are to blame for controlling our perception. That's why I can't wait for Trump to bring the media down. They really, honestly, Charlie, are the enemy of the people. And I think someone on your show said, if you don't want the virus, if you don't want the voodoo virus, don't watch TV. And if you want to stop racism, just stop talking about it.
Exactly.
That's all it is. I think this race war is so. Well, I was talking to one of my friends about how, you know, racism is too politically valuable to be able to die. So what it is, it's kept on life support right now, so that, you know, you can use it for future elections. And like the BLM movement, why does it only come up every 4 years? It's only, when I saw the chart for it, it only peaked last year in 2016 was the last time we ever heard of the BLM movement. So honestly, I just don't really think Trump will ever be accepted.
Did you see the Black Lives Matter march? 99% white.
Yeah.
Black people don't believe in the bullshit. It's complete and utter bullshit, because number one, it's you couldn't make it up, because you've got white people, the Clinton Foundation and Soros, who happen to be white,
right?
Who are actually, both families are incredibly racist. Let's get it right. And the money comes in through Black Lives Matter, which enslaves them, and comes out the other end to Biden, and I'm sure he's white as well.
Yeah, definitely.
And he's been 46 years in office and done absolutely nothing for black people. So what? I don't understand how black people even think this is sensible. I don't get it, because there's not one black person in the world I don't like. In fact, that's a lie. There are some. They work in politics. They work in the Houses of Commons and the House of Lords. They're the ones I don't like, because they're dishonest. But the rest of the normal black people, the normal brown people, yellow people, whatever, means they're all, in my opinion, they're all equal. We are all equal.
Exactly. But Charlie, I wanted to ask, do you think Trump will ever be accepted by the mass population? Because if you think about it, for 4 whole years, we have had missile attacks upon our minds through the mainstream media every single day, 24/7, telling us how awful he is. And after 4 years, the human collective consciousness has already been so hardwired to hate him. I mean, it's just too entrenched, isn't it? No. Do you think people will ever accept that he was?
Because let me just give you a little insight. There's 330 million people in America, and he'll win this election by 90%. He'll win it by 90%. 90% of America will vote for him. Now, 99% of the mainstream media hate him, but they only represent a very small number of people.
Right.
So at the moment, and what happens in America now is what happened 4 years ago, where they'll actually tell you they're going to vote for Hillary Clinton or for Joe Biden, but they won't. They won't. They'll vote for Donald Trump without a shadow of a doubt, because people vote. People don't vote because of what's on the telly. I promise you. They vote because they've got a job. They vote because they've got money in their pocket. That's it. That's what, if a politician makes sure they've got work, which a lot more of Americans have, they don't actually care what the fighting is. As long as they've got a job and got some money, that's all they care about. That's right. That's the majority. So as long as they've got work, and like even building the wall, that was only to create work, not just for work for building it, but to reboot the steel economy in America, which would have rebooted millions of jobs. And people overlook that. Oh, it's to keep out the Mexicans. Yeah, of course it is. That's part of it, but that's a very small part of it. Because most of the Mexican drug dealers use the sea to bring the drugs in. They stopped all of that. And of course, he's absolutely smashed the drug cartels in South America, like into oblivion. But he'll refinance those countries so that people won't want to leave their motherland. They'll want to be there. And what he's just done in Iraq, he's made it so he'll make it a very wealthy country because the Iraqi dinar will have a high value, a high value. So the Iraqis will want to go back to their motherland. We all love our motherlands. And if we're suddenly in a position where we get rid of all the rubbish that goes with it, then people will rush back to Syria, Libya, Iran, Iraq. They'll want to go back there because you and I both know that they're all beautiful countries. That part of the world is a stunning part of the world, been screwed up by evil Western leaders.
Exactly. So true. There's a few things I'm confused about, which I wanted to talk to you about as well. So, you know, we've got the triumvirate of Putin, Xi Jinping, and Trump. Three of the great Modi, right? That's exactly what I want to talk about. Three of the greatest leading nations in the world.
Yep.
If they work together with pure intention, I honestly think, of course, they will succeed. Personally, I find Putin absolutely fascinating.
I love it.
Me too. President Xi, I understand, is now calling the party the new federal state of China, right. I think. Right. But I think what I want to say is it really is the absolute dream team. But I remember, I think on your show, you also mentioned Modi being part of this, right?
Yep.
Of this alliance. And what I don't understand, Charlie, is that why is he part of this alliance? Because I'm just telling you this from my point of view and from the point of view of my people and the Muslim world. I don't really understand because he's been such a divisive leader. He is systematically trying to pursue ethnic cleansing of Muslims in India, because I have family in India who are members of parliament also. But you can honestly just ask the taxi drivers and shopkeepers on the ground level, and they will tell you that he's always discriminating and oppressing the Muslims. And in Bangladesh, my father is a veteran politician, a highly regarded public figure, and he works very closely with the Prime Minister. And he obviously has a lot of sensitive information that I can't really divulge into. Sure. But basically, how is it that Trump can include Modi in his team? I mean, India is considered the second biggest secular democracy, and previous leaders have always stood behind this secular principle, and that everybody is equal and that your religion will not determine your rights in this country. But I feel like for the first time with Modi, we have a leader who is literally being called, I think he's called the butcher of Gujarat, because he comes from an ideological background that actually calls into question the government's commitment to the equality principle of the Constitution. Mm-hmm. So I guess I'm just trying to understand. And for example, the iconic Barbary Mosque, which was destroyed by a mob of literally Hindu nationalists. And I think more than 2,000 were killed.
Yeah.
But, you know, people don't forget these things. No. And I think religion is very sensitive for people. And Modi and Trump are both nationalists, but I feel like Modi's nationalism is using religion as a card to purge the country of Muslims. And my dad always quotes Gandhi because how did the quote go? Basically, Gandhi has always obviously been opposed to such oppression. And I think he said something like, a country is like a mother, you cannot divide a mother. So I just find it difficult to understand.
Answer your own question.
But then
let me explain the way that we're going. The Modi's is being controlled by Donald Trump without a shadow of a doubt, and Vladimir Putin. But he's one of those guys that is easier to manage than, it's the lesser of the two evils. The one thing that has become very, very clear, and you just nailed it, religion. I can see that a lot of religions, especially with the fall of the Roman Catholic Church being so corrupt, as we're finding out from the Vatican, religion will fade away, but faith will shine through. And it basically, when you put faith, look, my wife's a Muslim, I'm a Christian.
Right.
When we first got together, I was told very clearly that you can't marry her because she's a Muslim. I went, just show me where it says that in the Quran or in the Bible. It doesn't say it. It's man-made. And then I said, love is love. It doesn't make any difference. It doesn't differentiate between color or whatever. It's love.
Mm-hmm.
And they started looking at me. And I have a very naughty way of describing faith and religion. I say, it's like a body. One religion's a thumb, one's a nose,
Mm-hmm.
one's an arm, one's lungs, but they're all very different. But they're all very, very necessary. And one
Just
religion...
the form is different, the form, but the essence is the same. Right.
Exactly. But one religion's the arsehole. I don't know which one it is, but it's a necessary part of the body for getting rid of all the shit. And it still needs the right hand to keep it clean.
Exactly. That's such a great analogy.
But it's all necessary. And when one part of the body is broken, you don't cut it off. You try and repair it. You try and look after it. That's how the body works. But we're far too clever, aren't we? We try and cut that off. We don't like them, don't like this. And this has happened especially in India and especially in Pakistan because of all the different, and Bangladesh, because of all the different religious denominations. That when you actually break all that shit down,
Mm-hmm.
suddenly you realize you have the same faith as your neighbor.
That was beautiful. That's so true, honestly.
And if we could get rid of what's divisive in our lives, which is political parties, and a lot of religions are extreme, which are not good. The only thing that was constructive, I was born in a religious cult, the only constructive thing that I found looking back in history was fellowship. It was a group of people like-minded together. And what we're going through right now, we're going to have our own fellowship of people against the deep state, people that can see the light, see what's going on. And I've got beautiful relationships now with so many people because we understand the same things.
Right, exactly. And there's so much intimacy in understanding each other, honestly. Last year, I actually visited Bangladesh, and there was a lot going on at the time because I think it was last year when Modi announced the Citizens Amendment Act,
Yep.
which basically meant that all immigrants were allowed to apply for citizenship in India except Muslims. But Charlie, I'm just so confused because as a Muslim, I can understand why people from my side of the world are suspicious of Trump because of his previous anti-Muslim rhetoric. And now he has recruited Modi, who is not so popular in the Muslim world. So I guess what I'm trying to ask is, has Modi turned, or is his pledging of allegiance to Trump just, optics while he continues the ethnic cleansing of in India?
My wife is exactly the same. She can't stand Trump. I said, just drop the image. Just drop that and look at what he's actually doing. And yes, he was not very nice at the start of his tenure towards the Muslims and not letting them do this, but that was also done as a smokescreen to distract from something completely different. And I now understand that fully. I understand with Modi that he's a necessary part of the jigsaw, as was Boris Johnson at the time. And Trump will use a number of people. Whether Modi will still be in power at the end of this, I doubt. And whether Boris Johnson will be in power, I doubt. I think both of them will be replaced. And when we get through this, I think they're pawns in a very delicate chess game right now. And they're both completely controlled by Trump, completely. And he will use them. And when we start looking at what's happening in the world dynamic, the fact that he built the relationship between Israel and the United Arab Emirates, Abu Dhabi, that has a huge dynamic impact on so many aspects. And people are, what about this? What about Palestine? These are all pieces in the jigsaw which will come together. And I honestly believe, and I know that Donald Trump gets on extremely well behind closed doors with the Muslim world. I know that from personal experience, that I know that the Muslim world absolutely love him behind closed doors. And I learned a massive lesson when I was in one of the palaces during Ramadan for iftar in the Majlis. And I saw a Sunni cleric and a Shia cleric sat together.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
I thought they were supposed to hate each other.
They are.
I saw a Qatari in there. I thought everyone hated them.
Yeah, that's right.
Then the word brotherhood springs to mind. So you see something on the outside, you see something on the inside. And I sat there and I was just, it was a reality check, but it was the only thing that wasn't in there was a woman. We'll get to that later on. You know, slowly, but I just found it amazing. And one of my good friends from Pakistan is the Crown Prince, Sohail Al-Zaruni, who is one of the most wonderful gentlemen you will ever meet. I mean, one of the most humble men. That when I met him, we were just talking about things. He's very proud of the fact that he's got the largest collection of Starbucks memorabilia in the world. He's in the Guinness Book of Records. I think that's so brilliant. The Crown Prince, you know, that's his love.
Thank you.
Starbucks memorabilia. But a wonderful man. But no, we're going through a stage where there will be confusion. I get that.
Because it's hard to understand what's being done for optics and what's not when you don't really know.
I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree. Tiana, you're absolutely spot on. And there's a lot of smoke screens out there for a lot of reasons.
Exactly.
And the other thing, of course, for people, especially you, not me so much, but especially for you, because you're younger, that when all this is over, your generation have got to stand up against Trump and challenge him and hold him to account, but in a constructive manner.
Mm-hmm.
And what we've recently had is a destructive manner, and that's no good to anyone. It's like criticism. If criticism is constructive, you'll take it. But if it's destructive, you just go piss off. It's human nature.
Yeah, definitely. I think also while on this topic, can you also explain why Trump is still imposing economic sanctions in Iran? And also, did Trump have anything to do with the killing of General Soleimani? Because he was essentially Iran's viceroy for Iraq. I think he was like the General Flynn of that nation, wasn't he? The people of that region really loved him. And I think Iran is one of the only countries that has the will of the people behind them. And I think Iran is also one of the only countries who's just defiantly maintained their sovereignty against the cabal. Yeah. But I feel like they've been so economically isolated from the rest of the world. But the people in these countries still believe in their leaders. And Iran, just like Turkey's leader, Erdogan, who is also a people's leader and strongly stands against the cabal. So my father, just like everyone else in the Muslim world, admire them because they stand up to foreign tyranny. And so I just wanted to ask, has Iran completely sided with China now, as they're not getting any help from anywhere else?
This again goes back to when I go into the Majlis, and when you see the Iranian ambassador and you see the Turkish ambassador and you see them all together, behind closed doors, they get on incredibly well. And you sit there and you go, I thought you actually hated each other. So you sort of see on the outside, on the media side, it's very, very different from what's happening behind the scenes. And it's like when I knew right from day one that Trump was working very closely with China, with Xi, so Xi Jinping. So, and he pointed the finger at China. It's China, China, and made a big point about it. It was nothing to do with the leader. It was to do with the people around him. And he's very, very careful with the way that he says things. But I know he gets on very well with Erdogan. I know that. Okay. I know he gets on very, very well with a number of people in Iran. But at the moment, Iran, it's a political game that they're planning out, they're working out. It's fascinating to see because Iran is a beautiful country. I mean, a stunning country. And I wish it would open up so the rest of the world could see what a lovely place it is. And most of the Iranian people, if not all the ones I know, are amazing people, lovely people. Same with the Iraqis. They're good people. But there's a lot of politics being played out in media that are not anything like what's going on behind the scenes. I don't know everything that's going on behind the scenes by any sense, but the little times that I've seen behind the scenes, it's extremely different to what's being played out on mainstream media.
Okay, that's good to know. It's quite reassuring.
It is, but it's at times you look at it and go, I remember when the first time I saw the Sunni cleric and the Shia cleric just sat talking. And I was inquiring because of their headdress, the different colours, the white with the red, and they're dressed. I'm fascinated by culture. So I was like, what does it represent? And I had another cleric that sat beside me that was telling me all about it. And it's just like lads talking. It was so lovely. There was no airs and graces. We all shared food together afterwards. It was absolutely beautiful, and they were just lovely, lovely people. One of the biggest lessons I learned was very often they serve like a biryani, and they want to see if you're going to serve other people, or if you're just going to take for yourself, and if you're helping the man next to you. And they won't do business with you unless they can break bread with you or eat with you, and they want to see how you react at the table. And I find that absolutely amazing. I love watching, because I learned from 2 or 3 of them. They said, you just watch and you'll see the way the Americans feed themselves against the way the English feed themselves, and every culture has a different way. And it's quite, when you're forewarned about what's going to happen, they just sit back and you just watch them watch you. It's quite interesting to watch different cultures in the way that they serve themselves. Other cultures won't serve themselves, will serve other people first. And that's how they look at you to decide if they want to do business with you, to see how you look after everyone around the table.
Right. That's very.
It's a beautiful thing to watch when you know what you're watching. It's beautiful to watch. But no, behind closed doors, that's one thing I've learned. Very, very different from what's being played out in the media and whatever. And
it was so exciting for you to watch everything just play out while you know little bits of information about what's really going on. It's like a movie, honestly.
But this is why I don't watch movies, because my life is better than any movie I've ever seen.
It's the most exhilarating. You don't even need to watch movies.
I don't, and then I get to talk to beautiful women in the day. It's brilliant, isn't it?
Absolutely, it's the life to have.
Exactly. And to share information with somebody that's of your age and so well read and so intelligent is a privilege and an honor. It really is.
Oh, Charlie, thank you. I'm just so happy to talk to you finally, because I've been watching you for so long, and I've loved some of your guests have been so articulate as well, and so amazing in some of the information that they've provided. But yeah, you've grown so quickly in such short time. Because I actually
37.
Yeah, that blows my mind. You're at what now? 130,000 subscribers?
136,000 today.
Growing by the minute.
We're going up by 1,000 a day.
Crazy. I think finally, I don't want to get into the politics side of it too much. I know that we're talking too much about politics, but
you can talk about whatever you want.
I just wanted to lastly ask about Palestine. Why did Trump recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital when it's the sacred city of all 3 monotheistic religions, Muslims, Jews, and Christians? So this has really angered the Muslim world. So I just want to understand your if you could elaborate on that a bit more. And what did happen to Netanyahu for his crimes against humanity?
This is one of those magical moments where, when I started this journey, it was like having a box full of pieces of a puzzle and trying to create the picture. And the one thing that I've learned right from day one, they said, Charlie, trust the plan. Because there's a lot of times where I would have asked exactly that question. And I know if I ask them tonight that question, they'll go, Charlie, trust the plan. And I have learned to trust the plan. And there's things that are being done that don't make any sense to me at the time. And then suddenly you see it turning and you go, Now it's starting to make sense. It was like the original when Trump banned the Muslims from going into America. It's like, what are you doing? What are you doing?
Yeah, they hate him for it.
I was speaking to my Arab friends who are in positions of high power in the Middle East. They were angry and publicly gone angry, and then 2 days later they were really happy again.
Exactly.
And I went, what's going on? They're going, don't worry, everything's fine now. And I went, okay. So it's all been done. It's all been done. As whether it's a smokescreen, I don't know. One thing I do know is that Trump is definitely not racist. He's definitely not against any religion. He's against all forms of extremism, whether it's Black Lives Matter or Ku Klux Klan. They're both as bad as each other.
Now the Democrats are politicizing the coronavirus. You know that, right? Coronavirus.
Should never control health professionals. Health professionals should be controlled by you, the patient.
This Hunger Games society is not classic fascism, it's not classic communism, although the outcome in terms of tyranny is the same. It is a technocracy.
When John Wedger, I believe it was, who was the Scotland Yard officer, who came into your show. I thought that was so amazing that he is single-handedly trying to change the establishment completely on his own. I realize that people are going to have cognitive dissonance when all this information is released. But I remember I saw a Q drop that said only 20% of the information was going to be released. But then Q also said that, what was it he said? He said some things cannot be told, they have to be shown.
Yeah.
So is that true? Like, I just wanted to know, like, will it really just be 20% of the information, Charlie?
I think it would probably be less than that, because some of the stuff is so disgusting and so awful. If you're not wide awake to what's going on, you'd have mass suicides and heart attacks with what's actually gone on behind the scenes.
Right.
I think elements will come out. I think also those that are investigative will be able to find out far more if they go down and start searching for it. But I think in the public domain in general, I'll give you one example. I was sent a video of Hillary Clinton abusing a child. I deleted it immediately, and I would never ever share it with anyone because it was absolutely disgusting. And stuff like that, I just think to myself, I don't want to be part of that sort of thing. It's disgusting. It's horrible. And there's a lot of things. I was showing my wife last night the fact that they've found all these babies and children under Central Park in New York, and they've got all these tents out there because they've been down there for so long. When they bring them out, they die because of the because of bringing them straight into the fresh air and because of the light. So they're trying to take ventilators down, but it's so far underground that getting the electricity down to run the ventilators is proving impossible. So they're up against some very difficult things, and those sort of things are very, very, very distressing for any mothers of this world. And that shouldn't be really in the public domain. That should be there if people want to find it, but I wouldn't want that so that people had it openly. And there's a lot of other things that are going on. I think also when you find out that people, and this is something that I would need to address with the Indian, Pakistan and Bangladesh, because they've followed the Hollywood mold into the Bollywood mold. They've been involved in a lot of trafficking, pedophilia. And in India and Pakistan and Bangladesh, people are going to be absolutely devastated when they find out that their heroes, their idols, have been involved in that sort of thing.
But Charlie, I'm not saying that the public, they don't need to see Frazzle Drip. They don't need to see the video of Hillary and Huma Abedin torturing the little children or child. I'm just saying that, they also don't need a blow-by-blow account of everything that's happening. But I just feel like giving them selective information to save people from the effects of, traumatic cognitive dissonance. I just feel like it's so frustrating for those of us who have known for so long. And, we've known for years, and we've been patiently waiting to be vindicated somehow, so that, all these people who have completely aggressively, sometimes even violently gone against us, to really just, because I don't feel like most people will still want to accept the truth. If they need to be shocked into the truth, There
will be some shocks out there, Tiana, I promise you. There will be some shocks out there, big style. And it will be up to the team behind the scenes to make a judgment on that call. I've spoken to a number of people that have been involved with the recovery of young children, and they are struggling themselves with what they're seeing. Forget about if you're not involved. These people are actually involved. They're struggling emotionally and mentally with it. So it's a very difficult thing as to how much the public can cope with, and how much they need to wake them up and to make them realize what's gone on. But the one thing I am very confident about is the people behind the scenes will know exactly how much should be put out and when it should be put out. And I was told not to expect really anything until February next year.
Okay. People are emotionally, resilient enough, or do you feel like? Because I feel like now this society has really cultivated and socially engineered literal snowflakes. We've become snowflakes. People are so emotionally weak that, even the truth has to be watered down for them.
Yeah.
Which is just quite unfortunate, and because, I'm not saying we should be unkind to these people, of course not, but surely we shouldn't have to worry about them, killing themselves.
Well, we've been through a period of time now where you're absolutely right about the snowflake mentality. And we've had about 10 years now of this snowflake mentality, which you can't even look at somebody. My daughter tells me off because I refer to Pakis as Pakis, and she said, Dad, you can't call them out. I said, but I go to Pakistan and I get on brilliantly with them all. It's not said as an insult. She said, in England, you can't say it because you'll upset people. I went, I don't get it, because I travel extensively. I never talk about that as offensively ever. And they call me all kinds of names, and I don't get offended.
Right.
But nowadays, everybody gets offended at everything.
everything's offensive. Everything, they just get their feelings hurt about everything. I mean, humor, there's the political correctness, honestly, I feel it really comes from low self-esteem.
Yeah.
Right?
I agree with that.
So that's just, honestly, I just feel like the indoctrination is honestly just so deep, so deep. People really need to, there needs to be some sense of visual communication for people to really understand.
Sure.
Yeah. So another thing I wanted to mention the other day was something about, I think it was Jimmy Savile, right? He was the fall guy for the institutional satanic, ritual abuse. But it was only after, I think, Edward Heath, and after Edward Heath died, did some news come out about Jimmy Savile, killing those little boys on the boat.
Yeah.
But then there's, Leon Britton, and then Cyril Smith, and everyone starting from Margaret Thatcher to Edwina Curry. They all knew about it, right? And just like the BBC, in front of the Bush House, Charlie, there's literally a statue of an elderly man with a boy, a naked little boy. And so where was BLM when they were taking down these, what they called offensive statues in Bristol? Where were they then? Why weren't they taking down these statues, which are basically pedophilic inherently in their nature? It's just very confusing, the way people's reactions to things work.
It is, and we're seeing that play out now where I pointed out my wife she's now with me 100% on this journey. She still doesn't like Trump, but she understands everything else. And there was hardly any media coverage about the protests in Berlin or in London. But we read one German paper that said there was hundreds of people, one paper said there was hundreds out, and the other one said that there was at least 30 protesters. At least 30 protesters. There was 4 million.
4 million. Oh my God. How do they do this? Honestly, the same thing happened here, I think, because I went to the pandemic protest and the Save the Children protest, but at the pandemic one, they made it seem as though only a few thousand people showed up. The British media made it seem that way. But then apparently there was a BLM protest right after it. And you can see it on the pictures that there's only a handful of, you can literally count the amount of people that are there, but they've made it seem as though the headline literally reads, 1 million people march against racism.
Yeah.
It's just manipulating semantics in such a way for people to have a programmed response. The headline for our protest was 10,000 conspiracy theorists who think COVID is still a hoax. The semantics really matter.
Yeah. And the one thing from the Trump team that I've learned right from very early doors is the mainstream media will be the last ones to be taken down. But they will be taken down. And I know exactly how he's going to run it. After he's taken them down, instead of having Q as his source of information, he'll have his Twitter account, obviously, which he loves. But he'll have 7 social media outlets that he trusts. He'll provide the same information to all 7, and it will be them to interpret but it will all go out through social media, not through mainstream media. So all press conferences or anything like that it'll be press releases to social media, but to 7 platforms that he trusts. And then you'll get 7 definitions, because at the end of the day, mine is only a definition. I take the information from 3 or 4 sources and I tell you how I see it. It's my view. And people say, you said this. No, this is my view from what I've gathered the information. But I'm fortunate enough to have the information like you are, because of your links with your family being in politics. And you hear things and you get a picture, and you know what you can say and you know what you can't say.
Right.
You and I are on the same page on that, and we'll have a discussion when we're off camera about the stuff we can't say.
Very true. We've got to get a group, a WhatsApp chat going very soon. But yeah, exactly what you said. And then I think I also wanted to talk about GESARA. I just wanted to mention GESARA a little. Also, why is it called GESARA and not GESARA? Is it the Americans who've made it? Obviously, it's the Americans, but why is it? Shouldn't it be GESARA instead of GESARA?
Yeah, it is. Depends where you come from. It's a bit like Shrewsbury and Shrewsbury. Depends which side of the river. Because you're educated,
Exactly.
it's GESARA.
Exactly. What I wanted to ask is, can you just explain to me, when they abolish income tax, then does that include people who work at a job and have income, or does it include people who have businesses and make profit, who
all
income from
income
profit?
tax. All income tax. The only tax after this is done, the only tax will be a purchase tax on non-essential new items. All other taxes, death duty, income tax, purchase tax, housing tax, every other tax, council tax, one-bedroom tax, all those taxes will go because they're all corrupt and they're all wrong.
That's amazing. So people don't really realize that there's so much money in the world.
Yeah.
And I think you mentioned that there was so much gold in the world, but we're always in this bubble of, austerity and scarcity. So is there really just like crazy amounts of money and precious metals hidden away?
Tiana, you have no idea how much mankind has made.
Oh my goodness.
No idea. The amount of money we've made is obscene. I mean, it's off the scale, but it's all been stolen by the corrupt deep state. The cabal has been stolen. And the amount of money that's there, and the amount of gold that's there, that's unrecorded, is absolutely mental. I mean, if you divided up the wealth that's out there now, everybody would be incredibly wealthy, everybody. And that's without taking anything off the super rich. That's just taking the money that's been hidden away. It's in the Vatican. It's all been everything's been taken out of the Vatican. I mean, 650 plane loads left the Vatican of cash, gold, and documentation. 650 plane loads.
That's insane. Oh my goodness. Can't imagine. I can't fathom what that sort of.
On top of that, cheers, honey. My wife's just leaving. On top of that, you've got 176, 178 underground warehouses. And when I say underground warehouses, Tiana, they're massive. 178 of them full of cash and gold. And just for the record, that's why Philippines is shut down right now. Because they're moving it around. They put it into shutdown so they can move it around. It's got nothing to do with the virus.
That's so interesting. Gosh, the more you know. Also, I read somewhere that of all the states in America, I think Florida has the most amount of missing children. I think the number's roughly around 41,000 children. So I also wanted to ask you if you think, does that have anything to do with the fact that Disney World is there and most children that are going missing are tourists' children?
That's exactly what's happening. They're all involved. They're all complicit. And this is one of the things that whether they'll let out bits, but when they find out that Disney as an organization is complicit, you only have to look at the symbolism around Disney to understand the paedophilia that's linked to it. And that's very hard for people to accept.
Very hard. Disney is very hard, even though it's so in your face. For some reason, it's quite hard for people to take the Disney information. And I think Disney's also airing a cartoon with a same-sex couple kissing, and then I think now they've also got a new gay character in the new Beauty and the Beast, which means that they're also normalizing this lifestyle and pushing the LGBTQ agenda.
Yeah.
So it really is. I mean, if you just step back and connect the dots, it really is the cesspit that Disney is. It's not that hard to put things into perspective. And I feel like Trump is honestly he is going to disclose everything, isn't he?
He's going to expose everything and disclose everything. And but there'll be certain things that they'll manage very, very carefully as to how they do it. It's very, very clear that the people in Hollywood and in Bollywood that were cooperative, they would let them leave a legacy, but they'd just disappear from the face of the earth.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
But if they cooperated, if they failed to cooperate, they'd be exposed for what they are. So you can imagine that they all jumped at the idea of cooperating.
So that doesn't mean that the ones that are guilty of these satanic abusers of children, they will eventually be executed, won't they? Or indicted and executed.
If they've been involved in child trafficking, human trafficking, or paedophilia, it is an automatic death sentence.
Right.
The only thing that lets them off that is if they cooperate with Trump, and he can then transfer that sentence to a life in prison, meaning life, with never coming out. But on that side, I don't know how many have done what. I really don't. But that was their choices.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. That's what I thought. Also, there's something I read about the camel racing. That was quite horrific to read about. Apparently it's not just the satanic abuse and trafficking. There's camel races that happen where kids are literally kidnapped and smuggled, and they're maimed and killed, and for the amusement of these oil-rich rulers. It blows my mind that, you know, camels, they're not meant to run 30 miles an hour, and you've got babies sitting on them viciously having to, you know, because they're running so fast, their limbs are sometimes falling off, and it's horrific, the things that are happening in the world. Oh my goodness, to even think about.
Well, you just need to go into the adrenaline crime, because the adrenaline in your blood, this is what makes a baby valuable to these people. So they have to torment the children to get the adrenaline going, and this is something I don't know how much will become public and how much won't, because I've looked into that rabbit hole a bit and I've come straight out of it.
It's just too overwhelming, honestly. It doesn't sit well with your spirit, and it makes you want to cry.
Everything's wrong about it. Everything's wrong about it.
They're the closest thing we have to God. It's crazy.
I've just picked up Justin from his gymnastics, and he's got two little friends, and I looked at them, and they're just two beautiful little girls, and it makes your heart rip to think that anybody could do anything to them, anything other than love them.
Yeah.
You know, they're beautiful children. These are two little Spanish girls that are absolutely adorable. And the fact that I just look at children in general, I've been very blessed, you know, with 4 children and 4 grandchildren. I lost my eldest son, but I've now got, you know, little grandchildren. I've got my first granddaughter. So I'm the luckiest man on the planet, you know. I love women.
Are they insane, or do you get to visit them a lot?
I get to visit them. My daughter and my granddaughter are in England. I've got my eldest son who was killed. His son lives in Florida, in Boca Raton. And then my second son has a son that lives with him down in Cornwall, in England, and another son from another relationship in Norway. And my daughter's in England with her little daughter. So, yeah, I'm very, very blessed.
Get to travel a lot to see all of them as well.
Yeah, I do. And of course, Justin's here as well, so he's here all the time. But he's on a different level to even me. He's understanding things so much quicker than me. And I was talking to one of the spiritual leaders the other day, and she's saying he's on the 14th dimension right now. He understands what's going on.
14th. Oh my goodness.
He understands everything that's going on, and he's totally connected.
Wow, that's beautiful. Honestly,
it's incredible. And I had to do a speech on Saturday, and at the end of the speech, I thanked my wife and I thanked Justin for being there. And he came up on stage and took the mic, and he said, "My dimension is higher than my mummy's and daddy's put together." Which I thought was wonderful. Absolutely wonderful.
That is wonderful. Wow. How old is he, did you say?
10 years old.
Oh, that's insane. Oh my God, I can't imagine. He's vibrating at a higher frequency for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, Tiana, and we'll have to do it again.
Definitely. Also, Charlie, if we do ever speak again, it would be so lovely to tell you about my spiritual journey in Sufism, because I know you're very interested in the spiritual side of things. And it would be lovely to be able to speak about how all these religions have the outer ritual and ceremonial side, but all these religions also have this inner esoteric mystical side that is so beautiful.
Sure.
And it's so hidden away. It's been buried so that by the cabal, I think, honestly, they don't want us to be so spiritually awakened and our third eye being open. They don't want it.
No, they don't. They don't. But it's been absolutely brilliant talking to you. I would love to do a round table with you, with Al Pasani, and there's at least one other and maybe two others that I'd love to get on that conversation, because it's so constructive. And my job has been, I've been sort of put forward to do this, to connect to people and try and share information from every aspect to try and enlighten people and to bring people to the truth.
Yeah, definitely. Also, Charlie, before you go, I also wanted to mention that I told you that I saw Emma Goodwin on your show, and that was one of my favorite episodes, honestly, because she spoke about the Western Price Foundation, and she talked about Sally Fallon, and coincidentally, my mom, who has been following Sally Fallon for ages now, I've even seen Western Price's book lying around the house, but when my younger sister was born, she was actually she had a lot of complications. She was slightly premature. She wasn't drinking breast milk. So what my mum did was literally follow Sally Fallon's recipe for baby formula. And I remember her making it every morning, and she put the most insane things in, like raw goat's milk, cod liver oil, thick raw cream, and then things like bone broth, and even raw eggs sometimes. But what happened was, it was such a powerful what she used was, I think Western Price calls it the X Factor formula. And I think it's such a powerful catalyst to help the body absorb minerals and utilize them. So what happened was, traditionally we've always been taught to eat eggs, fat, and grass-fed meat. But I just feel like with this vegan agenda, it's almost completely disappeared from the Western diet.
Yeah.
And I remember my mom sent the pictures to Sally Fallon, and they actually published them on her magazine. And it was amazing because, Charlie, I saw this firsthand. My sister was a scrawny little baby, and I saw her grow into this luscious, just chubby, healthy baby. And I saw it in front of my eyes. So, I mean, that goes to show that, everything she said is so true.
It's amazing.
It's absolutely amazing.
Well,
so yes, it was lovely to talk to you. Thank you so much for having me.
No, it's been an absolute pleasure and a privilege, and I'll get you onto a round table because your insights are absolutely amazing and just what we need right now.
Oh, thank you, Charlie.
Thank you, Tiana.
Hi, it's Justin, and I hope you're enjoying my dad's videos. Make sure to share this video with family and friends, like and subscribe, and turn on post notifications so you get notified for all my dad's new videos. My social media will be tagged down below so you can follow it, and just remember, Jesus loves you.